Welcome back to the Photo Banter podcast. Before we get into today's episode with photographer and film producer Hiram Garcia, just wanted to let you know about our new Patreon page. If you've been enjoying the podcast and would like to support, you can go to patreon.com/thephotobanter. If you sign up, you'll get access to the podcast 2 days early. So like I said, if you've been enjoying and would like to support, it'd be much appreciated. It's patreon.com/thephotobanter. And on today's podcast, I speak with photographer Hiram Garcia, who is also the current president of productions at 7 Bucks Productions, where he has produced films such as Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, Skyscraper, and Hobbs Shaw, to name a few. In today's podcast, I speak to Hiram about how he got into photography, his artistic approach, and I also speak to Hiram about his new book titled Through the Lens, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, His Life, His Movies, His World, which documents over 2 decades of personal and a working relationship with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Hiram has traveled the world with Dwayne Johnson working on Blockbuster movies, and in his new book, Hiram gives you a behind-the-scenes look at what goes into working on these big production projects. Hiram is someone who has accomplished a lot and brings a unique perspective to still photography, having also worked extensively in video production. I hope you enjoy, and thanks so much for listening. All right. Well, Hiram Garcia, welcome to the podcast, man. Excited to talk to you. You got a brand new book coming out, all the stuff you do with movies. So I'm really excited to talk to you about everything you kind of do within your world. But I guess to start off, I was kind of curious, how's the last 5 months been for you, man? Like crazy times for any human being on this planet to be alive. But I guess how's life, man?
I'm telling you. Well, first off, man, thanks for having me on the show. It's so nice to meet you over this Zoom, and exciting to talk to you. So yeah, look, the last 5 months have been crazy, like it's been for everyone, right? I feel like we're all doing our best to take these curveballs as they come. You never plan for it. Look, as producers in the film industry, our job is to be like, well, we're ready for anything, but we were never thinking about this.
Yeah.
You're never thinking about this, and like everyone, I think you never imagined that this was going to come, but just done our best to stay safe, keep working, planning for the other side when we come through it, while doing our part to make sure we're being responsible and following guidelines to make sure we keep everyone else safe. And it feels like we're starting to see a little bit of that light now at the end of the tunnel. We've worked really hard over the last 5 months to come up with protocols and plans that we can put in place to, most importantly, keep everyone safe and then get people back to work, and starting to get some normalcy back into business and creating content for fans and so forth. So it feels like we're starting to move in that direction, and I'm glad we are.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because for like the type of productions you guys are making, like Jumanji, Hobbs and Shaw, or even like Ballers, maybe a lot of people don't realize this watching it as a fan. A lot of these sets, there could be over 100 plus people, 150 people on these sets. So it's like, just like, how you guys been navigating that with COVID and stuff? Like, how do you kind of create the protocols and stuff just to make it happen? Because I know myself, I work in like commercial photography where the sets are smaller. It's like 10 to 15, but even navigating in our world has been kind of interesting. Everyone's kind of doing it differently.
No, it is, and you called it, on one of our productions, we'll have over 300 people working on set, and that's just the onset. That doesn't include construction and so forth, the people at the production office and so on. So, and that's where you feel the weight of that responsibility. We got to keep everyone safe, but we also want to get everyone back working. So look, we've been very fortunate. The movie we're doing now is Red Notice, and we're doing that with Netflix, and they're the perfect partner. They are, not only are they titans in the business, but they're so determined to make sure everything is being done right and safely. And so we've worked closely, with doctors, Netflix, and the unions, and we've created these huge manuals on just how to go about filming. And filming is complicated now. There's no joke. It's not a walk in the park, but it's what needs to be done to make sure everyone's safe. But it's, tons of testing, it's bubbles, it's sequestering, it's pod systems, you name it. It's very intense. But, as we step back and our partners have done such a great job, and our line producers, but now we take a step back and we feel confident in, like, our filming set is probably going to be the safest place to be in the state it's in. It's one of those vibes where we've worked hard, and look, it's no joke. I mean, Netflix has stepped up in a major way, because you can imagine the costs that come with something like that. But
Yep.
They've been there the whole step of the way, and you know, importantly, our crew and our cast feel safe now with what we've done, and that's what's going to allow us to get back to filming.
Yeah, and one more question about the film stuff before we get into your
Yeah.
photography, which I'm excited
Yeah,
to talk
bud.
to you about. Because myself, I'm a movie junkie, man. Before this happened,
Yeah.
man, I go to Regal Cinemas, and they had like you guys probably don't like this, but it's like $23. It's unlimited. You can go to
Oh,
all the
it's the
movies.
best.
It was great, and I was seeing everything. But like for you, you're working in this business, the movie business. Like, do you think movie theaters are going to exist the same way they have been going forward, or what's your kind of take on this? Like, I guess.
Look, I think I think going to cinema is always going to exist, right? I think, you know, there's a joy in, you know, going to the movies is a communal experience. And there's nothing like when you're at a movie, you know, you think a horror movie, like a horror movie by yourself, but a horror movie with a group of people screaming and then everyone laughs because they scream, like it's a communal fun experience. The business was evolving regardless. I think what's happening is it's always been evolving. And I think, you know, COVID has kind of progressed things. I don't think it's ever going to go away, but I think it's going to continue to evolve. And I think you're going to start to see a bigger gap between what people feel fits better on streaming and what fits theatrically. And I do think for theatrically, people just want to know that they are going to the theater for an experience. And I think you want to make sure that that experience feels different than what you would get at home. And I think that's where it's going. Like, look, I think those gigantic tentpole superhero movies, you know, an Avengers, a Black Adam, I think those are the kind of movies that you want to go to the theater. It's you know, it's the top of the food chain in terms of effects, scale, it's massive. You want to watch it with fans, you want to cheer. But then I think there's other genres that, you know, no longer play as well in cinema, and that's fine. I think you never want to be against change, right? Like change is going to happen, so you either get on board or you get left behind. And for us, it's like people aren't saying they don't want to receive content. They still want content. They just want it in different ways. And it's our job as content creators to just deliver on that. So whether we're delivering to streaming, to TV, network, or cinema, like there's stories to tell and we want to tell them. But I do think theatrical will always live. And I mean, look, even in these times, there's been a resurgence in drive-ins, right? Like those were really diving down. Drive-ins have come back in a way. I think people ultimately just want to have options, and there's something fun to leaving the house on a big event. They just want to know that it's worth their money, and it's our job as filmmakers to make sure we're making something that's worth that.
Yeah, it's interesting. And it's been cool to see, like, because Netflix, a bunch of their productions, they've been actually putting them in theaters too. Like last year, I saw, I forget what movie I saw, but they were putting a few of their productions in theaters. So they're kind of doing both worlds, which is kind of interesting to see, you know?
Yeah, agreed.
For sure. And I guess to go back, I guess I was kind of curious, like where you grew up and like, how did you kind of get into photography? Like, did you always kind of envision yourself kind of working in a creative career path like you're in now?
You know, so I grew up in Jersey. I'm a Northeast, tri-state area guy. And I didn't know I was ever going to be in film or photography. So many times I wish I did, because I always feel like I wish I knew more now. Like I just want to be further ahead of the game. But I was always a creative guy. So I was a music major growing up. Music was always my focus. And I always felt most comfortable in creative spaces. I actually thought that my path was going to take me into the music side of the world. That's what I studied in college at University of Miami. That's where I went to school. And, you know, I got a degree in music business and entertainment. And I started working a little bit in the music industry, and it just didn't fit. I just, you know, my tastes didn't align. I think the first thing you always have to do whenever you're in the business of creating content, right? I think if you want to produce to the masses, I think you have to have a real honest conversation with yourselves and be like, do my tastes align with the public? And I just was not aligning. Like I knew right away, you know what, the stuff that I'm liking is not what the majority of people are liking, you know? So I kind of faded out of that and was lost. And I had always helped DJ creatively. You know, I've known him since I was like 14.
Wow. I've
always helped him creatively with dialogue for The Rock and creating like catchphrases and so forth. And when he got an opportunity to work on Scorpion King, you know, he reached out to me and he was like, hey brother, he's like, you want to come along? He's like, I've never done this. He's like, let's figure it out together. Let's see how it is. And I said, sure. I didn't like my job anyway. I dropped my job, went over there, but it was instant. I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to be a producer. Like, and from that moment on, I had now focus. Like, and I was lost and I had focus and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I have no film experience. I've never read a script or anything, but I'm going to figure it out. Like, that's the plan. And I started on a very long journey towards film production, and ultimately that is, on the side, I've always loved art and creating, so I always loved photography, but that path of film is what allowed me then to start to really explore photography as a hobby, and then what turned into actually a nice profession as well.
What was it about that first production, Scorpion King? I think you said, what was kind of light that went off for you? What did you kind of like about that initial experience, I guess?
Yeah, I think just the process of making films, and I think, I think for me, I felt like this was a platform that would give me an opportunity to tell big stories, and I felt like my instincts aligned with what the audiences like things that were really successful, I really liked. And I felt a synergy there that I think I have a shot here, because I'm not liking stuff that the world oh, I love it and they don't love it. Like, we were always in sync. And I think that ability to go, well, I think in big story terms, and my instincts for storytelling seems to align with what the public likes, made me start to feel like there was a synergy there that really clicked. And then just the whole atmosphere of being able to create and kind of do these big stories, and the idea of being able to, because look, you're a fan as well, what like a powerful film, what it can do to you. It's like, it blows your mind. It adds creativity. You go to bed, you start thinking of possibilities, what could be, who knows? Like, I love that ability to inspire creation, to create a moment of like levity. If people are experiencing something tough, they can go to one of our films and feel good at the end. We take pride in not telling stories that make you feel sad at the end. We do like to leave you floating in some way. So to be able to create that escapism that you felt when you were watching like a, Jurassic Park back in the day, or Star Wars, like, what a dream. It was just one of those things where you just knew this was the fit. And I didn't know if I was going to get there. You never know, but yeah. I knew I didn't have a plan B. So I'm like, I better just go for it, because if not, I know what I'm going to do.
Yeah, it's like the cool thing about like even like photography world. Like, there's so many photographers that I've worked for that have been like really successful, and they didn't go to school for it or anything. They just kind of started like as a production assistant, or like working for a photographer in their studio. And even some of my friends that grew up out in Hollywood, and he's worked on like Ford versus Ferrari and some other projects. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, you just started from the bottom. And it seems like the film industry, if you want to show up and like put in that sweat and the blood, sweat, and tears, like there's a spot for you.
That's the truth, man. And look, and I didn't go to film for it at all. And I did similar to what you said. It's like, it's funny. I did that film with DJ. I did 2 films with DJ, and then coming away from it, I just realized if I really wanted to be a producer, I needed to learn from the bottom. Like, I needed to get in it. And I went back to Miami, and I was a production assistant for years, working commercials just from the bottom, from like sweeping absurd amount of Starbucks runs, which is why I never want to order Starbucks on my own, because I'm like, I did so many brutal Starbucks runs in South Beach. Like, can I get a half calf, half decaf, double? I'm like, oh my God. So, but like in it, grinding, and the beauty of doing that especially as commercials in Miami, is I was able to mix around and do a little bit of everything, because it's not really, it's non-union. So I was able to, I was driving people, I was helping grips, helping gaffers, like really learning the business, so I could just understand the language and the culture of it, and prep myself to then try and circle back around while I was learning. Like, I was film nerd, watching everything, especially the stuff that didn't work, so I could see why wasn't it working and what can I learn from that to apply to my projects. But really just putting myself through the paces, so hopefully I could get another shot to get back in and play at a bigger level, and eventually I was able to.
Yeah, because like as a film producer, like that's one interesting thing I was kind of interested in talking to you about, is like what's your role on a project? And like if someone wants to be a producer, like what skills do they need to have? Like, do you need to understand like how the cameras and lighting work, or how do you kind of view the job as like a producer, I guess?
Well, there's different kinds of producers, right? So it's like, and there's different ways to be a producer. You can be a line producer. If you're just like a great money guy, you can just be the guy that you're all about holding the line, right? We call them line producers because their job's to hold the line, make sure everything's on budget, make sure everything's coming right, making sure everything fits the numbers. I'm a creative producer and an overall producer where the films are ours. So, the producer, it's funny. It's one of those jobs. We do everything in essence. We've usually climbed from the bottom. It's a lot of putting together the whole project, maybe thinking of a project, finding a writer who can do it, or seeking out a project that a writer's already found, getting it going, finding a director who wants to do something, if he really is looking for something, then finding the project that he fits. Like, you want to put it all together and then kind of oversee and make sure that you're staying within the tone of the project that you want. You are the main liaison between you and the studio. If you're, obviously you can be an independent producer. You can, we're fortunate enough that we've done both. We've done independent movies, and then we've worked with the big studios. We tend to be the liaison between the studio, who's the money behind the project. But the truth is a producer wears many hats, and it all kind of falls on your shoulders when you're the guy who's guiding the production with your director. So it's fun, it keeps you busy, it's a lot of work, but you have to learn to juggle a ton of things, because you have a bunch of kind of small balls that you're rolling up a big hill, and every day you just push one a little bit more, and then reset, push, and which one picks up some steam, right? Let me push this one a little bit more, but keep them all going. You want to keep all those fires, those kind of balls juggling, so that when one's ready to hit, you can go, and then you have another one ready to go behind it. But it's fun, man. It keeps you busy for sure.
I would imagine like you got to be good with people, because you're dealing with a lot of different personalities, egos, and every project's different. Like, do you feel like having that skill set has kind of even helped like your own still photography work, you think?
Oh yeah, I think, look, anything, I think they're all connected, right? And working on a working on production definitely gives you an advantage. Just understanding etiquette and how to deal with, if you're photographing someone, how to be with them, how they like to be treated, to give them the space. Really just learning how to read the moments. I think there's times where you can shoot, there's times where you can't, but they're all connected. I think any kind of content creation, you can find threads through them all and how to be. But at the end of the day, I think every business, you want to be good with people. I think, it's just a credit to you. And it's like, we've seen people who have made careers not being nice, but I never want to be one of those people, right? I think we have a motto we've always said that, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. And that's something we truly live by.
Definitely, man. And I guess, like, how do you kind of initially get into photography? Like, when did you kind of first pick up a camera, and like, how do you kind of get into it, I guess?
I've always loved photography, and it's funny, and I would try and dabble with it. Especially coming up, as your production assistant, I had no cash to buy a camera or anything. So you're just kind of hobbling around. You have a dream of it. I always joke, it's like you have these dreams of like, man, I'd love to be a kick-ass rock drummer, a kung fu master, and a photographer, So, photography was something I always wanted. And I had gotten to a point where I had this kind of big giant kit, I like earned up, and I had like, a giant Nikon, DSLR, but they're huge, and the lens is huge.
Grip and all that.
Yeah. And then you're afraid of traveling with it. I didn't want to put it on a plane because I don't want to get damaged, because, I was too cheap to have an actual carrying case. So like, you're kind of halving it in like a camera bag.
Dude, I wrap my cameras in my sweatshirt. I'm so bad. I have a backpack because I don't like camera bags. It's just like wrapping a sweatshirt.
I've done that. Yeah, around the lens, you rank like a tank top or something super janky. And it just got to the point where I wasn't getting shots because I wasn't bringing my gear. So it was actually right around Baywatch. Mirrorless cameras were really starting to explode, and you could get killer camera, like pro level camera, super tiny. And I remember just saying to myself, you know what, I'm going to try this. I'm going to get one of these small mirrorless cameras, and I'm going to get a prime, a 55 prime. And this is it. This is my kit. I'm just going to keep it with me, and I'm just going to shoot when I can, and whenever I can. And that was the first movie that I started doing it on. And we had a run of movies there where we did all back to back, Baywatch, Fast and Furious 7, Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, all overlapping. And Baywatch was the first one I started shooting. And we ended up, as I was doing it, I was teaching myself more. I was like, oh, how do I figure out how to do this? Editing and, files and so forth. And we ended up using a lot of my stuff for the digital campaign. And
wow.
There was a particular shot in the book that I've always loved. And it was a shot of DJ and Alex Daddario. And it was kind of like my homage to an Alex Ross kind of painting. If you've ever seen, the comic book artist, he draws them a certain way. And the photo came out like that. And that was where I really started to be like, you know what, there's something here. It's like, this is and what it was a great creative outlet for me, because you're so focused on producing the movie and you're doing all the stuff and dialogue and scenes and blah, 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 blah. But there's this one space where once everything was running, I could kind of, go and sneak a couple shots and get cool angles and a cool behind the scenes vibe, which I had access to because fortunately it was the film I was producing. So, you have a little bit more leeway than if it wasn't your film. And from there, it just really fed my hunger for it. And then it became my biggest kind of hobby away from film, where I was like teaching myself and learning how to do stuff and figuring it out. And what do I do this?
Were you just kind of
YouTube, buddy.
Dude,
like
YouTube's the best.
YouTube.
I wish I honestly didn't even go to photo school, dude. You don't have the debt. Dude, I can learn
You can learn everything. And it doesn't matter what program. I'm in Lightroom, I'm in Photoshop. How do I do this? Like dodging and burning, it will teach you everything.
There's another good one I recommend to people all the time. It's called lynda.com. I think Microsoft might have bought it. It's all online courses. They have, it's amazing. Anybody wants to, and it's not even just Photoshop. You can learn video editing, whatever. It's an amazing program.
I love it. And look, that's the key. And I think in anything you do, especially in any kind of creative content, you always want to just keep learning, right? You should never reach a wall where you're like, oh, I know everything. No, there's always something new and ways. And then going back and looking at, like, when you look at the OGs, it's like you just realize like they were doing stuff back then that like people are killing themselves to try and do in Lightroom, and they were just doing it, in the dark room, and they were just doing, their kind of editing, and especially with black and whites, which I always really, lean towards. So it's it's awesome to just keep adding to your repertoire and just growing as a photographer.
Yeah, I always think it's interesting when I think of like Ansel Adams, like because people think of him like because back in his day he was shooting like 8x10 black and white.
Yeah.
But he was using like the best tools he could at that time. So if Ansel Adams was around now, I feel like he probably would be using like the top-notch digital stuff because he was just using whatever tools he had to make his art the best. And it's like you kind of continually keep learning. And so I always think about that for some reason. I don't know why, but it's just.
But it's such a great point, because I think what happens is I think a lot of people think, oh, that shot was, there's that famous Henriette Cartier-Bresson, the one of the man jumping over the, have you ever seen all the other shots in the series? Like it's a mixture of shooting, making sure, and then being able to choose the iconic one. But I laugh sometimes when I think people are like, oh, they just took it and everything was there. It's like, no, man, like, Ansel Adams was doing crazy post stuff in the darkroom. He was just doing it old school style. But like you're saying, if he was around today, he would be crushing it with Lightroom and so forth, and doing the same kind of things, but using whatever he had, because ultimately you just want to create the image that you have in your head, right? Exactly. And half of it is grabbing the image, but that first shot may not be what you really see in your head, and then you want to help it get to there.
Yep.
And that's kind of the beauty of it being art.
Yeah, the camera is just a tool. And
yeah.
You feel like you learned a lot because you've gotten to work with like some of the best cinematographers, DPs in the world. Like they're doing the top-notch work. Like, have you been able to like kind of pick their brains and kind of to see how they operate and this, like, because I mean they're the best at what they do.
Yeah, there's little bits to get from everyone. And look, I'll pick everyone's brains, from our DPs to, our first camera guys to, our set photographers. And there's something to learn from everyone. And, what are you doing? What are you using? And look, I'm a guy that I've always said, I just use the light that's there, right? Like I don't light for anything. And if, I'm always going to take advantage of these beautifully lit sets that we have and find cool angles that maybe the main camera's not seeing, but just figuring out lenses and learning to use lenses and cool kind of looks and filters and so forth. On the movie we're doing now, they're doing some really cool stuff with the lenses, with using old school lenses and
wow, cool.
it's just we did that on Jungle Cruise, where the lenses had a cool tint that just gave it a vibe of like, those films from back in like the 50s and so forth. So stuff like that is just fun to learn because it just adds to your toolkit, but I mean, whenever you have, like we shot with Skyscraper with Bob Elswit, who's an Oscar-nominated DP. I mean, and he always had a camera around his neck. So we used to come and nerd out and talk about it. He had this old school Leica on his neck with like these great, like a great Noctilux on there from like back. I'm like, oh my God, so dope. And you just watch him OG. He pulled focus so fast on that Leica, dude. Like, I mean, like nothing, like whap, bam. And I'm like, how do you do that? So I'm like hunting and finding it.
It's just it's an extension of his body at this point.
I'm telling you, really, really so cool.
Yeah, and like, has your approach to like photographing on these film sets changed, and like, how do you kind of approach it now? Like, do you kind of on each project, do you ever kind of like go in with a plan of like how you want to document it, or is it just kind of how it comes?
No, well, the evolution of it was really it's I'm always loose with it. You let the moment kind of speak to itself. But I do know I'll come in saying, okay, look, I know I want to get a key shot. I know we're shooting this scene today. I love this hero look. I love this set. The only thing that's has adjusted has, from before Baywatch, after it now, there's just a point of being like, the studio will want me to take the first look shot. Like, make sure I'm the one who grabs the first look shot. They like the way I may shoot it or something like that. Just knowing that there's key things we want to grab to also be able to tell the proper narrative for the movie we're doing. There's always a story you want to tell along with the film we're making. And so as a producer of the film, to be able to help guide that narrative, it's really, it's really advantageous, because there's a story we always want to tell with these things. And obviously, I work with Dwyane Johnson a ton, and he's a master of social media, and he always has a great story he wants to tell. So to be able to help support him and take the shots that he wants, that's going to be able to support the story he's trying to tell, it's always a lot of fun. And it's just another creative outlet, ultimately, of a way to just get your imprint on the film.
Yeah, for sure. And and I was really excited to talk to you about. You got a brand new book coming out.
Yeah, man.
It's titled "The Rock: Through the Lens: His Life, His Movies, His World." I was kind of curious, like, how that came all together, and like, how did you kind of know you're ready to kind of put the book together, I guess?
I was actually looking through. It's weird. It's one of those things where I shoot so much, and I think a lot of photographers do this. You shoot so much, but you never print. I never print out photos. I had never really done it, and there was something going on, and I wanted to print something out for D. I was like, let me look through a shot. And as a present, I was going to give him a printed out shot. And as I was going through all these images, I hadn't really stopped and just looked at the body of work that we had kind of created. And I was like, there might be something here. I'm having such a blast looking at this. And I showed him everything. He was like, oh my God, this is crazy. We forgot so many of these moments. And, I went and I had some conversations with my agent. I'm like, I think there's a story here to tell. I think there's a fun book I could do. And, we reached out to, and right away we had synergy with St. Martin's. They really loved the idea, and found a perfect partner, and we got right onto it. And it just was a very seamless process. Because again, it's one of those things, we're working so much, we're kind of shooting so much. It's not too often you get to stop and just look back on all the stuff you've done. And when you do, it's a really nice exercise, just taking a moment to breathe and see the stuff you've done. So I was really happy we were able to create a book and tell the stories behind basically the history of our friendship and a lot of the stuff we've experienced together.
Yeah, I really like how you put it together, because you had 3 sections. I believe it's what, his movies, his life, and then what's the other one? His world.
Yeah.
I guess, what was the process of like editing it? Did you kind of edit the whole thing yourself, or did you kind of get input from other editors, or like, how did you approach this kind of putting it all together, I guess?
I had a great editor, at St. Martin's, Elizabeth Beyer, who really, she's a master of this stuff, and she really kind of helped direct me. And then, she helped give it a body. And then we started picking photos between her, me, and DJ of what we really liked. And then, I just started kind of telling the stories behind him and writing out the stories. And some of the images speak for themselves, and some of them have just a lot of, really fun backstories. But I had never done a book before, so I leaned heavily on my editor just in terms of how to go about it, what's a good way to lay it out. And she was so helpful in it. And I'm really happy with the way it turned out. I thought it was a nice breakup. I thought it gives you nice slices of all these aspects of his life, and ultimately gives a nice platform to tell some of these cool stories behind the images.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And like, how did you kind of initially meet Dwayne Johnson?
So I met him I think I was like 14. So he was actually, him and my sister were dating when they were in college, and I was a scrawny high school kid, where you can see some of those pictures that are cringy of looking at.
I like to show you had a Sega sports T-shirt.
Yeah, dude.
Oh yeah, dude, Sega.
That's actually how me and him met. So we met, and the first thing we did was we played hockey, NHL hockey on Sega Genesis.
Classic, man.
It was one of the things we kind of met and bonded over. But it's, they dated then. They eventually ended up getting married. We've just always been this family dynamic. They, later got divorced. Somehow they grew closer. She ended up managing him. And we've just always had this creative trinity kind of between the three of us. We work really well together. We're all really ambitious, very hungry to tell stories, try and do big things, and have always stayed close. So, but he and I have always been kind of on the road, whether it be doing stuff for wrestling, for WWE, filming, doing both WWE and filming. We have just kind of these crazy adventures. And look, I have two sisters, and I never had like a brother, but he would be the closest thing I'd have to a brother.
And like, what do you kind of remember about back then, like early on? Like, did he always kind of have that like confidence and drive that like all these like hundreds of millions of people, we all kind of see it on his Instagram on a day-to-day thing, but like, has he always just kind of been that person with that drive and like confidence, or what do you kind of remember about him? Like,
first off, he was always huge. Always huge. I mean, the dude is just.
You're a big guy too, man. I saw you guys standing next to each other.
Yeah, I'm 6'5", and look, even as a high school kid, you think more of yourself. I mean, I thought I was bigger at that age, and I look at that picture, I'm like, I have like two strings hanging from my shirt. Those are my arms. So he was always big, but he was always charming. Like, he was always just funny and charming. Like, there was never, it's one of the great things about DJ, and he's got a lot of great things, is there was never like, oh, now he's changed. Like, he's always just been the same guy. He's just this charming, glowing personality who's funny, confident. I always remember there was this really fun, I always said it was foreshadowing of what was to come. It was when I was first visiting, it was the trip where I first met him, and me, him, and Danny all went to the movie theaters, and we went to go see, I believe it was Double Impact. It was a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie where he plays like twins. And I remember a scene, something happened, and DJ doing it to make us laugh, but he was like, I can do that. And I just always remember that moment. It was really well timed and foreshadowing. Yes, he can do that. Look at us now. He's an action star and more in his own right. So always been that guy, just fun, and very driven, really driven, great work ethic, always founded in the gym. And then from there, just, persevering outside and really just a killer of a human.
Yeah. Like in one of the photos in your book, the caption, I think it was something to the effect, it was like, you asked him like, hey, like, DJ, why have you never worked with the trainer? And he's like, oh, because no one can push me as hard as I can push myself. And I was like, oh, damn, man, that's hardcore.
Yeah, that's no joke, because then you got me that I'm begging for a trainer. I'm like, please make me work out. But it's like, he's and I loved when he said that. I never forget when he said that. And I did ask him, I'm like, how come you don't have a trainer or anything like that? And it was very simple, and it wasn't made arrogant. It's just like, because no one can push me as hard as I can push myself. And I thought that was very, very apropos for a person who's achieved what he's achieved, and really from just kind of grinding with his own two hands.
And has he always been comfortable with you kind of photographing him and stuff like that? Because I always think that, like, I mean, that guy's like the biggest movie star in the world, like one of them. Like, at a certain point, like, that guy has a camera in his face like all the time. Like, has he always just kind of been comfortable with you photographing him? And like, how do you kind of approach it, I guess?
Yeah, 100%. Look, first off, we know each other so well, so I can always read the room. We've never had a situation where he's like, ah, man, don't take a picture. Because I would know not to take a picture. But I'm also very, I pride myself on candids. That's my what I really like to do. And so a lot of times I have a camera somewhere, and I'll just subtly take it out, maybe shoot from my lap or something like that. And then always show it to him, because he also knows I have his back. There's never going to be an image that's shown that we don't both like.
Yeah, you're not trying to get them.
Yeah, it's not. These are memories for us, and we go so fast and so hard that it's like these are the things that we do that allow us to kind of just look back and enjoy it in some way, because everything happens so fast, and before you know it, it's like, WrestleMania, win the belt, done, go start filming, and you're like, oh my God, we just broke records at Miami. It's like it all happened so fast, but we were already on a plane moving over here so we could go continue shooting this. It's like, these are just the ways that we're able to not only celebrate those moments amongst ourselves, but share them with our family that we're often away from because we're traveling around so much.
Yeah. I mean, one of the most powerful photos in the book for me was this black and white photo of Dwayne on the plane, and he was writing the eulogy for his father who had just passed away. And it was just like those like short little moments. And it's like,
yeah,
like you said, you guys are constantly moving a million miles an hour, but with something like that, it just kind of shows you life can come at you quick, and it just kind of slows you down a little bit. It's just a real powerful photo, I thought.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and that was one of those things that I wanted to take for him. I knew he had really been, thinking about and wanting to do something really special and just find the perfect words, which he ended up doing it. I remember, I don't even think he read off of that book. I think it all just came from his heart, but he really just wanted to to say the perfect words as we celebrated, Rocky's life. And I just remember it was just us on the plane. We had just left Atlanta. We were flying to Tampa, and I just had my camera on my lap, and I'm like, I could just see him so lost in thought. And I figured he might appreciate this moment, because also there's something to it. He does appreciate those little snaps when he kind of really gets into things and just looks from outside. And when I gave it to him, he really responded to it. And he was comfortable with me sharing it because he really appreciated the image.
Yeah, because I really like the series with all the photos like in his life, where it's just like it just shows him as a person. Like for the most part, a lot of us, we see him in the movies, in the advertisement, whatever you may be, but it just kind of shows him like, yeah, he's a movie star, but he's just a normal person just like us. He's just a human,
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why he's so popular. I think people feel like they truly know him because he's very open, especially through social media. He lets people in, and he's been open about challenges he's had in his life, whether it be depression. The name of our company, $7, is basically, is based in the concept of his lowest moment in his life when he got cut from the CFL. He had literally all he had to his name was $7. And that was the moment where he made the decision, I'm going to give up the football dream, and now I'm going to start pursuing a new path, which was wrestling, which then led to film. So always been very open about that. And I truly do think that's why he attracts so many people. I think because they can just feel the authenticity to him, that he may look like a superhero and he's like this megastar, but at the end of the day, he's just one of us. He's had ups and downs. He just believes in hard work, and nothing makes him happier than just kind of being with his family and having his girls with him and having some fun.
Yeah, another really powerful picture was a photo of a young kid. I think his name was Gabriel. His nickname was Tater Singleton.
Tater. Yeah.
And, really sad story, but it just kind of showed this kind of amazing thing you guys do. I don't know if he had cancer or some terminal illness, and he really wanted to meet The Rock. I guess, like, what do you remember about that day? And is that kind of something you guys do a lot of? Just kind of.
We love it. It's one of the most special things we get to do. And, Dwayne's always had a very close relationship with Make-A-Wish, and we make a point of it on every film to basically, we'll go and he'll host a couple wishes, and we'll bring a bunch of the kids in. We pull in all our partners, and we make just a really special day for them on set. There's tons of junk food and candy and cookies and cakes, and, all the actors come and hang out with them. And, Microsoft usually helps us out and sets up a bunch of Xboxes, and and just give these kids just a day of their life. And he spends time with them. He keeps coming and visiting, hanging out with them. And, they kind of walk away with all these kind of goodies from him. And it's such a special moment. And I'll always remember, Tater was, we were filming Baywatch. It was during Baywatch. And this big campaign online kind of surged of just about this kid who loved DJ. And, he was really battling in a tough battle, and we pulled it together really fast, and we made this special day. We set up, we had all this fun food there. We had all these gifts, and Tater was this super charming, just young man who had been, dealt a tough hand. But man, they had the best day. It was so much fun. And, Tater was a massive fan, and we made these special posters of Tater in the middle of these action movies, made this great one of him on a Baywatch poster running with the bodyboard, and just a beautiful soul. And he was so lit up that day. And it's, so touching to see his family was just having fun and watching everything through Tater's eyes. And unfortunately, Tater moved on, and we lost him, but he'll always be with us. That was a really special day. I was so happy I was able to capture some of those moments. I have so many that I've kept for myself from then, of just those special times. But it's one of the great things about what we get to do in our position, that we can bring so much happiness to so many people. And it's one of the all-time best things about DJ is his desire, no matter what's going on. He sees a little kid, everything stops. And he's going to come over and say hello to the little kid, and just give a moment to him, because he knows what it means to him. And, it's like, this is what it's all about. So Tater's a great one. And that was a really special moment. And, we always keep him in our thoughts and our hearts. And his family was a beautiful family as well.
Yeah, definitely. It was a very powerful picture.
Thank you.
Another one, I was jealous, man. This must have been an amazing experience. You got to photograph at the Saturday Night Live writer's room. I don't think I've ever even really seen a photo from that, to be honest. So it was kind of cool. It was a picture of like Dwayne and all the writers kind of working together. And I think what's the guy who runs Saturday Night Live? The head guy.
Oh yeah. Now you're making
whatever. I'll think of it.
Yeah,
sure. But it was like the main guy who runs the Saturday Night Live. I guess what was kind of your experience photographing the Saturday Night Live on set? Because you even got some cool photos of Dwayne like in an Elvis costume. It seemed like a cool project.
It's always an honor to do Saturday Night Live, right? It's always an honor, and it's an intense week. People have no idea how intense that week is because you're doing so much in 1 week to get ready to film live. And I'm really proud of that picture. That picture is such a rare peek into the process. Can't lie, it was a bit of a, I had to be really stealth about that. That was, I could tell. That's like real. Yeah. But I loved it because I thought everyone, it's a flattering picture. Everyone looks good. You really see, them kind of watching and just listening, and all the writers there just kind of start pitching ideas, and it's just the beginning of the creative process of what's ultimately going to be the sketches. But I really love that shot. It's a really special shot to me, and it required stealth. I'm usually very kind of open, just cool, but I knew that was a slick shot because that is as it is. When it comes to SNL, they actually don't like actors to have their writing teams with them or the creatives with them. They really want to lean on their guys, and rightfully so, but they were very generous, and they let us do that. And we were able to create a really funny sketch. We did one of the wrestling bits, that we did, that we had so much fun with. So that's always been a special, experience doing those SNL, and that shot, I've always been very proud of that shot. That's full sneak-a-do shot right there.
Yeah, man, it's just like so iconic, man. There's so many legendary people have been through those doors, from like Chris Farley and everybody, so that's pretty amazing. You guys got to experience that. And I was kind of curious, like, how do you approach, like, because looking at your work, like you said, you really enjoy black and white. How do you kind of decide when you're going to go black and white, or do you kind of just do it after the fact, or do you kind of go into projects being like, oh, this is going to be black and white, you already have it in your head, or how do you kind of approach that, I guess?
Well, it depends. I'll typically I always prefer black and white. To me, I just feel like it's timeless, right? I think there's something timeless about it, and there's something that really drills down about what's happening in the photo, and everything disappears. But there will be times where I'm deciding if I know, like, for example, Baywatch, colorful, outside beach, vibrant, like I knew I was going to do that stuff color. But if we're green screen, if we're on a stage and it's green screen, you don't want to see that green background. I think I almost like that green screen aspect because now it's an excuse. I'm like, well, I got to shoot it black and white. So I usually choose, but a lot of times I do run around. I have a monochrome camera that I like to shoot. That's just like pure black and white that I'll do as well, that I enjoy just shooting. But it really depends the moment. But for me, it's typically when there's color, it's because there was a request for the color, but I will usually defer to the black and white. I just love the black and white shots.
Yeah. And a lot of the photos I really enjoyed because as a kid, I was a big wrestling fan. I used to get the magazines and stuff. And whenever WrestleMania came around, if you were lucky enough, you got to see it. It was an awesome experience. Yeah. And I thought it was cool. One of the photos, it was like, because Dwayne, he still goes back and he'll do stuff with the wrestling, but it said like, when he started getting into movies, his agents or whatnot didn't want him to go back into wrestling. But I thought it was just really cool how he kind of continues to kind of go back to that like fan base and stuff.
Yeah, well, that's his family, and that's where it all started. He comes from a family of wrestlers. That is the business that allowed him and launched him into the stardom he has now, and to being able to pursue acting and everything else. And it's true, the representation we had at that time was a bit limited in their scope, and they thought, hey, listen, you can't be a movie star and a wrestler. If you go wrestle, you're going to destroy your movie career. And and these were the same guys that were basically telling him, you can't be that big. You need to lean down. And there was that phase in DJ's life where he was super lean. Eventually got to a point where he's like, I got to be me. It's like, I just got to be me. I want to wrestle. And I still want to be a big movie star. I want to be able to do it all. And we found representation that supported that vision. When we got them, things really started to click. And it was like, yeah, let's go start whatever we want to swing for. Let's swing for it. And D had this vision. He's like, you know what? I want to come back. I want to give the fans the biggest WrestleMania they've ever had. And I want to put on a show like they've never seen. Yeah. And we did it. We were able to pull it off. And we came back into the business in a big way. We had a great run. We had a lot of fun. And that was where we actually really started to, that's where you see some of those behind the scenes images of what we were able to do. And we never looked back, but, we've always believed, why can't we do it? Like, well, why are you saying no? It's like, let us try. And if we can't, then, we fail, but at least we tried.
You already have millions of fans that have been following him for decades already. So if they love the guy already, they're going to follow him to see him in the movie. So it seems like it just makes 100%. sense.
And it's a character, The Rock is a character, and it's just no different than a Hobbs character. Like, these are all just fun characters. And, The Rock just happens to just wear, fighting briefs. That's all. That's the only difference. Just a little bit less clothes and a lot more oil.
Yeah, for sure. No, I love the wrestling stuff, man. Cause it's like, wrestling is like acting in itself. Like it must have been like good training for him. Just like going from that to movies. It's like, cause wrestling, they do that shit every week and it's like a new production. It's like, it's pretty wild.
It's an unbelievable process, and it's so complex. Not only is it just physically unbelievable, it's just a live stunt show every day, live, one take. But like you said, the amount of dialogue that his short-term memory machine is like nothing I've ever seen. We'll be doing these shows, and he will be getting ready to go out on a stage, and we will have just written like a 2-page monologue and gone through it, and I will watch him read through that thing 10 minutes before going on stage, and then reading that thing, one take, perfect, unbelievable. But I think the biggest thing will always equate to the business is, and what he's always loved is, ultimately it's the fan connection. Like his ability to go be in front of 80,000 people and like be perfectly in sync, and they're saying whatever he wants to say and they're cheering him on. Like, that's the fuel that he loves. And like, I think that's what you feel transfer over into his social media. He loves fan interaction. And that was always his favorite thing about the business. And then it's truly transferred over, I think, into why he's got so many social media followers, because it still allows him to play with the fans. And that's the biggest thing for him always.
Yeah, for sure. And then you guys went on to start 7 Bucks, your production company. I was kind of curious how that all came together, because I believe it's like you, your sister, Danny Garcia, and then Dwayne. How did you guys decide to kind of start that company, I guess?
Well, as we started to grow in the business, we always had, a desire. We wanted to start to produce and to create content, and started to have a production company, and you got to kind of start small, and that's what we did. But that was always a goal of ours, as we started to have more creative control over our projects, be able to kind of have more of an imprint on it, start choosing our own projects, developing them. So that was always a hope of having a multifaceted production company that really covered all the bases. And like I was telling you, the story behind 7 Bucks of why we wanted to name it that, it was really just kind of the grounding anchor of what we're based on. But it was always a dream for us, and we're so proud of how we've been able to grow it, and the company continues to grow. We have we have a creative marketing arm, we have our digital arm, we have our, our film, TV, so forth. It continues to grow. And from that very small, humble beginnings to what it's grown to now, it's we're just so proud of it and honored to be able to play in this game and tell stories. And we just, fingers crossed, we can just keep growing it and kind of expanding to create more content for the world.
And like, how do you guys kind of decide what projects you're gonna do? Because I went on your guys' IMBD, and it's crazy, man. Like, you guys have so many things. It's like you have like dozens of things just in production. I'm like, I don't know. I was like, it's freaking nuts, man. But like, how do you guys decide?
I think the first thing is we really think about stories that we want to make sure we're telling global stories, whatever it is. And it can be as small as, our indie, when we did Fighting With My Family, I love
that, man. That was a great movie, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you. And I, that was a global story. Like, that story transcends no matter where they're from, the fact that they're English or whatever. But I think a story about family, dreams, pursuing dreams, I think there's a universal message there. And, we always look for that. We look for stories where, like I said before, the audience is ultimately going to feel good. Whether it's absurd fiction, whether it's based on true events, we just want to leave people feeling better, somewhat inspired. Those are the things we look for, and ultimately content that features people getting a little bit better, right? We love that aspect of, like, wherever the person starts, somehow at the end of the journey, they're going to be a little bit better. That's very much speaks to our motto and beliefs. But, those are a lot of the things we look for, and just things that are worthy of, getting people to cinemas, like we were talking about before. We want to create content that people feel is an event to go see and is going to be worth them wanting to leave their house and go see. But, now we're also starting to make stuff that we feel we're very happy for people to be home and watch as well, as we get into the streaming world. So
Yeah.
Yeah, we have big ambitions in it all, but it's fun to create a big, diverse slate. But as long as we leave people happy, feeling good, and inspired in some way, we're playing in the right space.
And like looking at all the projects you've worked on, like when you look back at them now, like what have been kind of some of the most challenging productions, or maybe like a production you felt like you learned a lot from, looking back at all the projects you worked on at this point, I guess.
Well, you learn a ton on every single one. That's the thing, man. It's like you never have it down pat. Every movie is a new process. I think, Hobbs Shaw was a very tough film to make. We were backing into a date. We were constantly reworking the script. We were all over the place. So that was and the turnaround time from when that movie wrapped to when the movie had to be released was, that post-production schedule was like 24 weeks. It was crazy.
Did you guys shoot Havana, Cuba for that one?
No, that was Fast. That was Fast.
Yeah, it was one of them. Yeah, that was crazy.
I think State. But we shot in London and then we shot in Hawaii. That's where we shot. But that was under the gun. But some of the most fun probably I have to say the Jungle Cruise. Jungle Cruise was a ton of fun, and Jumanjis are super fun. That's just a big, great family. All those actors are great. Jungle Cruise was awesome with Emily Blunt and Jack Whitehall. They're like, at the end of Jungle Cruise, literally, there was tears. It was almost like graduating from high school because everyone had such a good time. It was just such a warm family that we had created on that. So, look, it's an honor to work on all these. All the movies are kind of like your kids. You love them all,
yep.
The same. But you do learn something on every film. And that's the beauty of it. You're always learning. You're always getting a new curveball. Look, just like on Red Notice, we just got a whole new skill set of producing in terms of now how you deal with protocols going forward with safety and set distancing and all those kinds of procedures. So everything is a new experience that you definitely add to the library of knowledge.
Yeah, I was kind of curious because you guys you don't just do films, you do TV, like you guys done HBO Ballers. Is there kind of a different approach to producing for TV versus film, or is it all just kind of the same, or how do you kind of view it?
No, I mean, there are some differences. Obviously, the way you shoot things for TV is a bit different than you would do for film. There's a different scheduling, there's a different approach to coverage. There's a different structure in terms of how you develop. But it's all fun versions of telling story. I think as long as we can tell stories, we like it in any form. We have a TV show that we're getting ready to start filming soon that's based on DJ's life called Young Rock. That will be on NBC. That's what we've been focused on right now. That's going to ramp up for filming. And again, it's a whole process because you're writing all these episodes and you're checking the episodes and you're getting everything approved and you're doing all different kinds of casting. But obviously the way you approach it is different budgetarily, crew wise. It's all a little bit of a different machine, but at the end of the day, it's a fun way to do a little bit longer form of storytelling. Yeah. So we're really excited about it, and that should be coming out top of the year next year.
No, that's exciting. And I guess I kind of asked it earlier, but like you guys have so many different things going on, not just your movies and TV productions. You guys even have a tequila company, Termana Tequila. You have I think a fitness expo or something you guys do called
Athleticon.
How do you guys manage all this, man? Like, I'm trying to understand it. Like, how do you guys not burn out? Because at the end of the day, like, you guys are human beings and you still have personal relationships. Like, how do you manage all this and like not burn out?
Well, we're very hungry. So we're very hungry and very ambitious. So we really enjoy trying to do these things. But we also have great partners. It's not, I think all great success involves several people, right? And the more minds, the better. The best idea always wins. And, it's aligning yourself with just great partners who are of the similar DNA, that have that same kind of makeup, that nice aspect that we were speaking about, that very much like to function like we do. But I think the key is when you have big appetite, you want to have partners that share it, because you need a team and you need a really good team to be able to achieve these things. And with that, that kind of team assembled, anything's really possible. So we're very fortunate to have a great company, to have great partners. We continue to grow, and that allows us to continue to expand our ambitions and our goals, and have the people around that can help support it and achieve it.
For sure. And I guess, a lot of people listening to this podcast are like younger photographers. Some of them are filmmakers. Like, what advice would you kind of give to them if they're just trying to get their foot in the door, like at a production company like 7 Bucks or whatever it might be, like any type of film production? Like, what advice would you kind of give to them to kind of get their foot in the door, I guess?
Yeah, I think, look, and from having kind of started, done stuff from the bottom as a production assistant, my first job as a production assistant, I worked for free. You got to kind of be willing to just get in there, and there's going to be, show your worth, work for free, offer that up, seek out a production manager, maybe it's some commercials or a film or something, if you just to get on a set, to be a PA, see if there's photographers you like, if you can offer up to assist them and help them out, and then let them see how good you work, and then that will eventually get you in where then I did my first production assistant job, didn't get paid, and then the next job I was offered, all right, we really like how hard you hustle here, now we'll pay you, so, but I think you got to be willing to go for it and really get in it, because the truth is there are tons of people fighting for those jobs. Like, this business, photography, filmmaking, content, Hollywood, however you want to call it, there are billions of people who are dreaming of this and that are competing against you. And it's really, it's always a mixture of luck and hard work, and you got to grind. But the truth is, no matter what, to achieve these things, you got to have big dreams. And the one thing I always like to say is, just know that you can never let anyone tell you your dream is done. The only person who can tell you your dream is done, where you're like, what, I've really, tried my best and maybe this isn't right, it's got to be yourself. Or otherwise you'll never be able to live with it. It's like, I never had a plan B. I had some people around me who are like, dude, it's not going to happen. Like, you're coming home to no power in your house. And I just never gave up. I'm like, the only person who will know when it's time to change paths is yourself. Just never let anyone tell you your dream's done. You just got to go for it.
Yeah, I think it's just like, also it's like having patience and like really building like lifelong relationships with the people you're working with. Like, I think it's easy when you're starting out to be like, try to make some shortcut happen or like some quick transaction. But like, I think I learned is this, like, if you really want to work in whatever photography, at least for me, it's like, you got to look at the long-term thing, not like some quick thing,
But brother, it takes, from the moment I said I wanted to be a producer, it took me 10 years before I even got a baby credit. Just 10 years to that. And then I took another step back before I climbed again. Like, you just have to, you just have to be ready to grind. And you also really listen, like, ask people, I think sometimes you get in these situations where, people will ask for advice and then they may not like what they hear. Like, no, because it's not going to be easy. I think you said it. There really isn't, you always find the anomalies that are blessed and have, just straight to it. But those are the few far, there's very few and far between those that happen. It's like a lot of people, it's just a grind, and you got to work and put yourself in there and not be afraid to get dirty. And if you stay the course, you'll be surprised that you'll find yourself on the other side.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess, you guys at $7 and Dwayne and yourself, you guys have accomplished a lot and gotten to travel the world together, meet a lot of amazing people, and have all these incredible experience. Like, what kind of keeps you guys grounded, and what are you guys hoping to do moving forward, I guess? Because it's like, you guys have had these, just looking at the book, I'm like, man, you guys are in South Korea, even for you, like, looking back at it, like you said, you started from the bottom just doing PA stuff, and now you're like traveling around the world. It must be kind of a trip for you guys, just to like, man, look where we're at right now.
Hey, look, we're blessed, and there's so many moments we kind of take a beat and just look around and say, man, how lucky are we to be here? But the truth is, I think what keeps us grounded is we remember we've come from humble beginnings. I remember what it was like to come home and be like, the power's off in my house, and it's like, well, there's nothing I can do. I'm just going to go to sleep, and I'll wake up because I won't be able to get it turned back on. You have those moments and you never forget them. And, I came from 2 immigrant parents from Cuba, and, I know how hard they worked, and you just never forget that the truth is, everything can just leave, right? It's like everything can go away. It's like you can be at the top of the mountain, you can be at the bottom. You just don't know what life is going to, throw your way. So I think you always just got to remember to stay grounded, be ready for what can come, never take for granted what you got, and never assume it's going to be there the next day. And I think that kind of approach makes us work like there is no tomorrow, and that's why we're so hungry and why we keep pushing, because none of us, no matter what, ever feel like we're safe. You feel like you just never know what's going to come, and that fire and that drive is what kind of keeps us moving forward and keeps us on our toes.
Perfect. And I guess to wrap up, man, what's next for you, Hiram? Like any goals for your photography or film production or anything you're kind of hoping to work on moving forward, I guess?
Yeah, man. Well, always lots of goals. I was going to have, I'm so happy that this book is coming out. I was going to do a Leica photo gallery in LA, this year, but COVID pushed that. So I'm looking forward to having like my first real gallery sometime next year, and really kind of being able to put everything out. And, just getting back into production. We have a big superhero movie, which I'm a huge superhero fan. As a fanboy inside, I've always wanted to make superhero movies. So we're doing Black Adam next year.
That's DC,
and it's going
right?
to be that's DC. Yeah. So that's going to be our big kind of foray into the DC universe. And, we're launching a bunch of characters there and the Justice Society and all these great guys. So really looking forward to that and building out that universe, because it's a storytelling space we've always wanted to be in, just as a fan growing up. So to now be at a point where we're filmmakers and we can actually tell those stories is really exciting. So looking forward to that and the pictures I can take, but it's going to be a lot of black and white because there's going to be a lot of green screen, buddy.
All right, yeah.
There's going to be a lot of green screen.
I always wondered like how actors like get into like sitting on a green screen. It's got to be, you got to be real talented, man, to just get into that mindset of like whatever.
It's so standard. And look, and it's gotten so good, most people don't even realize. But like you watch some of those movies, and you'd be able, you watch like those giant Avengers movies. Those things are shot in like blue and green. It's just how it goes to create those worlds to go all over the place. And before you know it, you get lost in the scene and your partners. But it's definitely wild to see how it is when they're just looking at a tennis ball up in the air and in the film it's going to be a big monster.
That's nuts, man.
It shows how great those actors are.
Oh, and last question I had to ask you.
Of course.
So do you actually know what The Rock is cooking?
I do, man. It's a crazy recipe. I just can't tell anyone. But he's cooking something crazy in there, man. He's a hell of a chef.
Right on, Hiram. Well, man, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. And for anybody listening who wants to like check out more of your work, where's the best place for them to go?
Thank you so much, man, for having me. It's been a lot of fun. We got to do this again. And yeah, they can check me out on Instagram and Twitter, HHGarcia41. I'm on there, and you can see some of the stuff I'm shooting and working on. Always welcome.
Perfect. Thanks, Hiram. I guess I'll cut it there.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you've been enjoying the podcast and would like to support, you can go to our new Patreon page at patreon.com/thephotobanter. If you sign up, you'll get access to the podcast 2 days early. I'll put the link in the description. It's patreon.com/thephotobanter. And it's also have to give a big thank you to our guest, Hiram Garcia, for taking the time to come on the podcast. It was a real pleasure talking to him about his journey through photography and film production. And just, I know I really kind of enjoyed hearing about how they kind of pick what movies they're going to produce and work on. Really cool stuff. So can't thank him enough. Definitely go pick up Hiram's new book titled Through the Lens, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, His Life, His Movies, His World. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere you can kind of get books. Definitely amazing pictures. It's kind of behind the scenes of his travels and working on these incredible productions like Jumanji and Hobbs Shaw with Dwayne The Rock Johnson. So definitely go pick up that new book. And as always, I'll be having weekly podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, as well as our YouTube page, The Photo Banter. So thanks so much for listening and take care.